So hi everyone, it's Julia, and in today's video I want to talk about why y'all need to stop hating on Katara. I have so many reasons for why I want to say this, so let's jump into them. So Katara's character, Katara is super sweet, mature, and she's like the mom of the gang. She wants to make sure that everyone is taken care of, she wants to make sure that everyone feels secure, and she really feels passion and emotion, which falls in line to how she is as a waterbender. So a lot of waterbenders have a lot of passion, as we see in the Legend of Korra with Tanrock and Korra. They're very passionate people, and Katara is no different. She always strives to be level-headed as well, but she has her moments where she can let her emotions get the best of her, and we're gonna go into that later in the video. So now we're gonna go into why people dislike Katara. So ever since the Avatar, The Last Airbender resurgence, a lot of people have come to really love the show, have come to really admire the characters, and a lot of the characters have been revered as some of the best characters ever in children's animation. But there have been multiple memes about Katara and how she always talks about her mom. And how, oh, my mom used to do this, and then she touches her necklace. You know, there's been like so many memes like that, and the fact that she only seems to care for her own emotions and not for the emotions of other people. A lot of people tend to compare Katara to Aang by saying, oh, well, you lost your mom, but Aang lost his entire culture and he's younger than you. So that's an argument that people like to make. People especially don't like Katara for what she said to Sokka in the Southern Raiders, and this is when they were arguing about whether or not she should go and actually seek revenge on the man that killed their mother. And Sokka says, she was my mother too, and then Katara says, well, you didn't love her the way I did.
Katara, she was my mother too, but I think Aang might be right.
Then you didn't love her the way I did.
Katara!
That set a lot of people off, and so I will also break that down later in the video as well, but that's kind of a breakdown for why people don't like Katara. Alright, so let's get into why I cannot stand these Katara memes. So I made a comment on a video about 3 months ago, and it got a lot of traction and a lot of responses, and so I wanted to talk about my comment and what I said. I have what I said pulled up on my laptop, so I'm gonna read it here. I honestly feel like all the fans that have an issue with Katara mentioning her mom are new fans. Because back when I was growing up and watching this show, I don't think anyone had an issue with it. It's all you new people. But seriously, it makes no sense how people have an issue bringing up her mom. She mostly brought it up to empathize with people, not to avoid responsibility, not to make her pain seem worse than the others. It's y'all who keep trying to bring up and compare her pain. Grief is a crazy thing, and as someone who's actually lost their mom, it transforms you, and for the first few years, especially if you don't work through your grief and trauma like Katara didn't, it can be the thing that defines and drives you. I was 15 when I lost her, and I'm 22 now, but Katara was only 8. This generation claims they're pro-mental health, but the people who complain about Katara just show how little they understand about grief and empathy. Also, I understand it's a joke, but when people actually dislike her character for it, it's just wild to me. So that is what I said on that video. Also, when I say new people, I say that I don't really remember a lot of people having a problem with what Katara said. And I mean that genuinely. Like, I've been a fan of the show since middle school, because I didn't watch it when it was airing. I didn't like it when it was airing. Yeah, I was that kind of weirdo. I didn't like the show when it was airing, so I watched it shortly after it ended in middle school. And I just don't remember people having a problem or people really pointing out that they didn't like Katara. I just never really saw that, you know? But I really want to make a point that Katara only mentioned her mom 6 times the entire show. The whole show, the whole 60 episodes, Katara only mentions her mom 6 times. Only 6. So it's not like she's constantly mentioning her every other episode. And what I want to bring to people's attention is that all the Avatar kids went through trauma. They all went through stuff, and they all had stuff to process. A lot of this trauma also drove the kids to succeed. And so that's exactly what Katara is doing. You know, her mom passed at the hands of the Fire Nation, and that is the thing that is defining her and driving her. Another thing I want to point out is that Katara and Sokka's grief is different. I'm not saying that Sokka did not go through trauma from losing his mom. Of course he did. Every child who had a relationship with their mother, a healthy one, is going to have trauma, but they had it in different ways. Katara is a lot more vocal and a lot more honest about her feelings, whereas Sokka seems to be the one to kind of be more, he tries to deal with it in other ways, or he tries not to be as vocal about it. And I actually have an older brother myself, and the way we processed our mom's passing was very similar. You know, I'm very vocal and very emotional, and Sokka, and like my brother was more like Sokka, you know, kind of quiet about it, not too like forthright about it unless he trusts somebody. So that's kind of how that is. The siblings process it differently. Not to mention that Katara also had to take on the role of her mother after her mom died. She had to take on the role, so she didn't have the wherewithal, she didn't have the time to really grieve it as a young child. She didn't have the time, she didn't have the privilege really to grieve it the way a normal child does. And then their father goes straight off to war, so it's like they were alone. They had their grandmother and that was it. They weren't able to properly grieve as a family either. So Katara lost all of that, and Sokka did too. So that's why I say Katara and Sokka grieved their mother's death in a different way. You also have to remember that Sokka tends to really look up to his dad a lot and wants to be a lot like his dad. So Sokka has more of a connection with his father than I guess he did his mother, and for Katara the same way. And that happens in families. For me, I definitely can say like I was very close to my mom, but I think I had more of a natural connection to my dad. And for my brother, same thing. It's just kind of a thing that happens. I mean, I still love my mother to death, and I still had a very close relationship with her, but that's kind of just how it works sometimes in families. You also have to remember that Katara witnessed the killing of her mother, she witnessed the killer, and she saw the aftermath. She was one of the first people to see the aftermath, and she's only 8.
Mom's in trouble! There's a man in our house!
And at that time, Katara was really small and defenseless, and her mother literally sacrificed herself to save Katara. Any person that their mother sacrificed themselves for them, you're going to live with survivor's guilt, you're going to live with regret, you're going to wish you could have done something. And you have to keep in mind that Katara and all these kids are just children. Katara is 14 years old. She's a baby practically. She's still a kid. And when you've had to take on all that responsibility, that could also be a way of coping. You know, taking on that maternal vibe, taking on that maternal personality is a way to help you cope, is a way to, I think, make you feel like you're contributing something. I can honestly say I did the same thing when I was 15. I kind of took on a maternal role in the household inadvertently, but also kind of provoked a bit by outside people. But yeah, I can say that I understand Katara in that right. So when you go through something as traumatic as losing your mother or losing one of your parents, like I said, it can be the thing that really shapes your world. It's a very traumatic thing. And for me, you know, losing my mom at 15, it was also an unexpected loss. It was very, very hard to work through, and I'm still kind of dealing with it in my own way today. I'm still grieving, and it's something that is honestly a process that takes years. And when you're that young, you can't conceptualize it. You can only conceptualize it to a certain degree. And for me being a teenager, I think I had the leg up in that way compared to Katara, but it's something that you can't really wrap your head around, and you're literally just trying to figure out how to move forward. When someone passes, when you deal with that, I think there's this concept, and it's like you grow around your grief, right? You grow around it. You don't necessarily move on from it. I will never move on from my mom's passing. Rather, I grew around it, and you try to create a world, or I guess around the grief, so that way you're not consumed. That way you're not trapped by the grief. And Katara did that in Avatar. Katara did that by learning waterbending, by teaching Aang, by being Aang's teacher. She circumvented that passion and that drive and that pain into helping restore the world and helping Aang become a fully realized avatar. That was her purpose. That was her drive. That is what she did to circumvent all that pain. So that's what happens, you know. And like I said, since she didn't have the opportunity to grieve, and then she was so driven in her purpose, she didn't have time to kind of sit back and really think and really process the passing up until the episode The Southern Raiders. So when Katara lashed out at Sokka, that was totally wrong. I don't condone that at all. In fact, I would never say anything like that to my older brother. So I can completely understand people's anger and frustration when they saw that part of the episode. I think it was definitely not becoming of Katara. But you have to remember that Aang and Sokka also knew that. They knew that Katara was not herself. They knew that she was dealing with a lot of pain and rage, which is why after she said that, yes, Sokka showed surprise and sadness, which as he should. I found it kind of interesting. Aang and Sokka didn't really argue or fight with her about it as well. I found that kind of very mature of them both, because they realized that Katara was going through something and there wasn't much that they could personally do about it. So what I would say is that Katara crossed into a territory that we like to call in psychology, as I'm a psychology undergrad, your shadow self. So it's your darkest part of yourself, the one where you kind of have the thoughts and secrets that most people don't really know about. They knew that she was in that space, which I again found very commendable and mature of Sokka and Aang. I also want people to remember that Aang has lashed out at the gang before. Like, this is not something that is just central and just native to Katara. This is everyone in the group. Aang has lashed out at Toph. If y'all don't remember the desert, when Toph literally held up an entire freaking library to save everybody. She did that to save everybody. They come out, Aang realizes Appa's gone, and he says, wow, why didn't you come to get us? You didn't care about Appa. You wanted him gone. And I thought that was terrible. I'm sorry, but I really didn't like Aang at that moment. I knew he was angry, but that was just wrong. And so that's what I'm saying. Like, they've all had moments. Toph has had her moments where she's lashed out at Katara. You know, they've all had their moments where they were acting like kids and they were letting their emotions get the best of them. They've all had their moments. And so why are we gonna just go at Katara for having a moment? That also kind of goes into, like, I feel like people don't talk about Aang enough. Low-key, I feel like Aang is underrated, even though he's the star of the show, but that's another video. So that's what I'm saying again, is like, people need to understand that they're all just children and they've all had moments because they're dealing with something that is so insane. Like, imagine being like 13, 14, fighting a war with your friends. Yeah, they're gonna have some moments, okay? I just really wanted to talk about how I feel like we need to stop the joking about Katara, because again, I get that that's a meme, I get that that's a joke, but it's not a funny joke. I think it's very distasteful, and I'm not just saying that because I've lost my mother, but I just think that that's a really distasteful joke in general to make. Katara would mention her to empathize with other people. She mentioned it to connect with people, because when you go through something like that, like for me, when my mother passed, I would say that my empathy went up a lot. Over the years, I began to understand a lot more about pain and about emotion. And so when other people were going through pain, when other people were going through trauma, I think I was really good at being able to respond to people. So I don't know exactly what they're going through, right? But I know what it feels like to be in pain, in deep-seated pain. I know what it's like to be in a pain where not everyone understands it, if that makes any sense. And that's why Katara brought up her mom, to connect with people, to relate to people, not to put all the spotlight on herself. So honestly, like I said, I just think it's a distasteful joke, and I don't even think it's funny. Like, it's funny to joke about Zuko and his honor, but I just don't think it's funny to joke about someone who's lost their mother, someone who's so young, someone who literally had to grow up. Because honestly, when your parent passes, from firsthand experience, your childhood's over. If your parent passes when you're a kid or teen, your childhood ends that day. So this is a girl who had her childhood end when she was 8. And we're making jokes. I get it, she's just a character, but come on, like, so I just wanted to make this video on how we need to stop coming at Katara. Katara is a wonderful, phenomenal character. She's a beast at waterbending. She taught Aang how to waterbend. She is literally the best waterbender in the world, and I just think we need to have some Katara appreciation. I know a lot of people like her, but the memes have to stop because she's honestly my favorite character. I think Aang is probably after her, and then Toph, and then Zuko, and then Sokka, but I still love Sokka. Just because he's at the bottom doesn't mean I don't love him. I love Sokka very much. It's just I connect to Katara and Aang more. So that's my video. Sorry if it was all over the place, but I had to get this message out one way or another. I hope I helped you all understand a little bit more about grief, about empathy, and how things like that are just very sensitive, and I just don't think it's tasteful to make a joke about it, even if it's just a character on TV in animation. It's just not right. So thank you all for watching this video. If you want more content like this, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Peace.